Hey guys, what's up? Welcome back here to today's edition of Intuitive Angling, and really appreciate you guys coming by the channel and spending some of your day with me on the video. And like the title said, guys, I got a story. I'm going to tell you something about you will not believe what I caught out of 6 inches of water. This was at a tournament at Lake Norman in North Carolina about this has probably been 25 years ago. So we're going to go over that in today's episode. And then also I want to have a discussion about how to read extremely shallow water, how to read shallow water, how to catch bass more consistently out of very shallow water. And when I'm talking about shallow water, I'm talking about water depths that are really less than 2 feet, 2 foot of water depth, which a lot of people don't fish very much. It's like people fish shallow water and people fish bank structures, but most people fish below 2 feet, not under 2 feet, but we're going to get into that today and definitely think it's going to tap into a population of fish you've never been after before. Also, guys, to get started, just a quick invitation. I'd like to invite everybody to please consider hitting that subscribe button here at Intuitive Angling. Really appreciate you guys, the channel support on that. And also, thank you very much for everybody that's been using all my video links or all my links in the video description, tackle warehouse link if you're using that to purchase your tackle, my fish the moment, lake map breakdowns, all that stuff. Big thank you from me and my family. Really appreciate that. Okay, I'm going to talk a little bit about, guys, how shallow fish get, and you won't believe what I caught out of 6 inches of water. Let me tell you this story first, and then I'll get into some more tips and advice here. The shallowest bass I have ever caught in my life, by far, was at Lake Norman, North Carolina. We had I believe it was I can't remember if it was a Bassmaster or FLW tour event down there, but it was an April tournament. There was a lot of bass bedding, a lot of bass up in shallow water, and I was doing pretty good in the tournament. I think I was in the top 20 or something in the tournament, and I was catching, most of my fish on a shaky head, a jig, and a wacky rig. And I was fishing docks most of the time, just skipping them up under docks and flipping and pitching docks. In this particular tournament, when I was fishing docks, I was working in between the docks, and there wasn't much cover in between the docks. And I got to the last dock in the cove, and I was getting ready to turn the boat to go out to leave the cove, and something caught my eye over on the bank towards the back part of the cove. I could see something moving back there, and I looked back over there, and it's like, man, is that a carp or something? It's like, it's too big to be a bass. And I looked over there, and I got looking again, and I saw a lateral line, and it was about a 5-pound bass, guys, with its fin out of the back of the water. You know how thick a 5-pounder is? This bass, it's like 25% of its body was out of the water. And it was just sort of sitting there. It was just like, it was moving a little bit, but it was just sort of sitting there. And it's like, what the heck is that fish doing over there? So, guys, at the time, I had a wacky rig. I had like a baby bass, 4-inch soft plastic stick bait, just on a wacky rig hook. And I threw it over there, guys. I threw it over about 2 foot in front of that bass, and that 5-pounder charged out there, gobbled that thing up. I set the hook, got it in the boat, and caught one of the biggest strings that day in 6 inches. That fish, when that wacky rig hit the water, it was only 6 inches deep, so it didn't take any time to get to the bottom. And that bass, it moved after that thing with half of its dorsal fin out of the water. I had never seen anything like that. That is the shallowest fish I've ever caught in my life. So I want to talk a little bit about the reality of what to look for, and how to fish and how to read really, really shallow water, less than 2 foot deep, and talk about when it's effective. Okay, there's 2 different things to consider when you want to target these super, super shallow bass. And there's going to be 2 different times a year that this super, super shallow targeting works. Number one is obviously the springtime of the year. When those fish are in and around that spawning mode, you've got a lot of fish up there that are cruising looking for beds. You got fish that are actually spawning. You got fish that are building beds. You got fish that are guarding fry. There's more fish in 3 foot of water or less, like in April when that water temperature is in the 60s, more than any other time of the year. And just like that big one I caught, there's a lot of fish to be caught in less than 3 feet of water. And this is one time of the year that you can catch them in that super, super shallow water even if the water's crystal clear. I mean, it can be crystal clear. Those fish don't really seem to mind that time of year. The thing about it, even though there's a lot of fish in that super, super shallow, they're not all catchable. They're not all like that 5-pounder I caught. Overall, what you're going to find if you see a bass in that super, super shallow water, either swimming or just sitting there, about 80% of the time that fish is going to be non-reactive. It's not going to bite. About 20% of the time, you may get one like the one that I talked about right there. So there's not really anything that you can do about it based upon the mood of the fish. Sometimes they are literally uncatchable. They will either freeze up or they'll dart away 100 miles an hour. So that's just, if you happen to pull up on one that, is active, you can catch it. So when you're in a situation like that, when you're, targeting that super, super shallow water, is number one, you have to make really long casts. And number two, you have to use baits that have a real slow, diminutive fall and a diminutive look to them. That's why the little wacky rigs are going to be good. That's why a weightless plastic worm, a weightless Cinco. Another bait that works really good when you can see them like that is a little 2.5-inch Rapala minnow, blackback silver side Rapala minnow. That can be pretty deadly with that. But in terms of reading that shallow water, one of the differences about super, super shallow bass that time of year versus other times of the year is most of them are non-target oriented. In other words, they can be on just a bare nothing bank. I've seen them on bare clay, bare sand, bare rock, of different variations. You don't have to have any complex structure there that time of year. So when you're in those type of areas and you're trying to read the potential of catching those super shallow bass in the springtime, just look in those type of areas where you think those fish are going to be spawning around. And you're not looking for beds, you're looking for these individual loner rogue fish that may just be in a lot of different stages. So that's one thing. The second time of year that you can catch a lot of bass in water of less than 3 foot deep is during the heat of the summertime, especially during the late summer like we're in right now. The time I'm filming this video, it's the first week of August. Water temperatures are maxed out. I bet our water temperature here in Missouri is close to 90 degrees. And it doesn't seem like that would be the time of year to catch those super, super shallow bass, but it is. Super, super shallow bass in the summertime can be caught if you have muddy water. You need to have water visibility of under 6 inches, dirty, muddy water. And you've got to have some type of a diversity mix of cover. So if you can find that muddy water and you can find it where it's positioned in an area that you've got a flat bank that has some type of proximity to a little deeper water, doesn't have to be real close, but it needs to be within 50 yards or something like that, and you've got some type of wood or grass cover, guys, you can catch bass in a foot of water when it's 90 degrees, especially on a bait like a full-size jig is going to be good, or on the opposite end, a little 4-inch plastic worm. It's like one or the other. If the fish are more aggressive, my favorite is to take like that 1/2 ounce, my Blaukat Throwback jig, black and blue, with either a blue or a black chunk on it, and flip it in and around that cover. Or sometimes, based upon the mood and the personality of the fish, I like that black Zoom Magnum finesse worm. It's like sometimes they want the really finessey stuff, sometimes they want the bigger stuff. Normally, if you've got grass or vegetation, like lily pads or shallow grass, they like the jig. And if you've got clean cover, like lay down trees or logs or stumps in the water or dock pilings or something like that, they'll like the worm a little bit better. So, and most of the time, as soon as it hits the bottom, they're going to get it. Now, the third factor when those bass and how to read water and where they get when super, super shallow is in the late fall, when that water temperature is in the upper 50s in the fall time of the year on man-made lakes across the country on certain type of days. Here's a perfect scenario when bass get dirt shallow. I'm talking about when literally, if you don't cast your lure and hit the bank and pull it 6 inches off the water, you may not get a bite, is if you've got water visibility in a lake you're fishing of between, say 1.5 to 3 foot, and you've got water temperatures that are like 55 to 60 degrees, and you've got a rainy day, especially if you've got cold rain, like say for example, it's the water temperature, say 57 degrees, and you have a front that comes through and it's cold and it may be spitting snow or it may be even cold rain. Guys, those bass will get so shallow under those conditions, and you can catch them on buzz baits. Like a buzz bait's a great way to catch them, a spinner bait. And literally, I have seen it where if you didn't cast and your bait didn't actually either hit the rocks on the bank or just within inches off it, you'd never get a bite. Because if you casted like a foot or 2 foot away from the bank or away from the actual bank, you were throwing on top of the fish. So if you get a situation like that, guys, get you a black buzz bait, a big spinner bait, something like that, chatter bait, and a good way to catch them under those conditions. So anyway, guys, hope that helps you guys catch a few, and we'll check in later. See you.